everybody.
What do you think of the ASB's move to pre-approval against low equity loans?
It's very unfortunate for anybody trying to buy a first home on a loan or medium income.
Were they a bank that jumped the gun though, or were they lending too much of this money?
As I understand it, they did have quite a high proportion of low equity loans, but that doesn't take away from the fact that government has got this wrong. They obviously have not coordinated with the Reserve Bank and got very bad policy as a result.
Well, English seems to suggest they weren't thinking, or they weren't listening, sorry.
The Reserve Bank or ASB?
No, the ASB weren't listening.
I think the problem is Bill English's. He told us that they had the world's best monetary policy. He then told us he was engaged in dialogue with the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank then ignored him and have come up with a policy which is not helping New Zealanders get under their own loans.
What was the LVR for first-time buyers?
Is the LVR policy then going against government messages and government intentions in terms of those first-time buyers?
As I understand it, the government took so long to make its intentions clear. The Reserve Bank ran off on its own. Labor's policy is, at least on an interim basis, to exempt first-time buyers from these LVR.
Our latest poll shows the majority of New Zealanders oppose the LVRs in their introduction. Do you think that's going to have implications for the support of the government?
Yes, I do, and I think it's a bigger issue than that. I think it's the lack of coordination between the Minister, the Treasury and the Reserve Bank, which is just showing that this government's losing control over economic direction.
But they're supposed to have independence there, aren't they?
Independent, in the end, isn't it? It's supposed to be independent.
Yes, but this is a new area for the Reserve Bank, and let's just wind the clock back. The Minister of Finance for years, when Labor was suggesting that they need to look at issues like this, said they didn't need to, that they already had quite the world's best monetary policy, so he was very late to the game. The Reserve Bank actually took our advice and started looking at a range of tools like this. Then late, the Minister entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Governor, which included macro-prudential tools, which include LVRs. What they didn't do was set out clearly enough, early enough, their expectation that this should include an exemption for first-time buyers. And we believe that should have been in place to push on the
So Labor would leave LVRs in place that exempt first-time buyers?
at least on an interim basis while we're shaking up Kiwi building capital gains tax. Yes, that would be it.
What's an interim basis?
Well, until we see the full effect of the capital gains tax and Kiwi builders well away, we will be giving an exemption for first-time buyers.
Do LVRs lose all relevance if you do exempt?
No, they don't. I think you'd still have at least half the aggregate impact on the LVR.
How do you
subject to further briefing.
How do you give effect to a carve out for first-time buyers without compromising the independence of the Reserve Bank?
Well, maybe in respect of this particular policy, more thought needs to be given between the intersection of the bank's macro-prudential approach, which is not just pure monetary policy, and the government's broader housing objectives. It's not wrong for a government to manage housing policy.
So you're suggesting changing the relationship between the Reserve Bank and the government for the finance minister?
In your breath, we've already said that we're going to be amending the Reserve Bank Act. Yes, we want to have a look at that boundary.
The LVRs aren't permanent anyway.
So you have
The
to...
LVRs aren't permanent anyway, so there's an intention further down the track to remove them.
There may well be, but in the meantime, many New Zealanders are being locked out of the first home market. At the same time, the government continues to give a tax subsidy to speculators.
Isn't it worse?
One more example of National having one set of rules for fat cats and another for struggling, hard-working New Zealanders.
Isn't it worse to see a housing bubble burst, though?
Well, if the government cared about the housing bubble not bursting, they'd bring in a capital gains tax like every other civilised country in the Western world.
Growing Weather says that people with low deposits are the first ones who are going to get hurt if there is a housing crash. So aren't you worried about those people being encouraged to have low deposit loans if you carve out first-time buyers from that?
Yes, that's a fair thing, and that's why I don't believe you should look at one policy in isolation. Housing's a complex area. You have to look at the intersection of supply, demand, tax policy, which is exactly what Labor's policy does. The government is playing catch-up. They're all over the map. They can't coordinate between the Treasury, Department of Housing and the Reserve Bank, and Kiwis are paying the price. They're being locked out. At the same time, the government perpetuates a tax subsidy for fat cat speculators. It's a mess.
Talk about playing catch-up. That's what Oracle seems to be doing at America's Cup.
They are playing catch-up. My Red Sox are waiting. I'm as nervous as other New Zealanders about this. It's just getting too close for comfort.
If they didn't bring home the cup, would it affect funding and everything for the government?
Well, if we don't bring home the cup, we won't be hosting it, so it'll be a different package. Let's just keep our fingers, toes and our Red Sox crossed that we win the next race.
The Reserve Bank is talking about Western banks to include accused of being predicated in LVR calculations. Is that correct?
I want to get some briefing, but that's not a particular aspect of it.
Some Tukituki catchment proposal, Nixon is saying he didn't know about the existence of a draft submission, but his weekly meeting notes with DoC clearly show that he was told about the submission and the direction the submission was taken. Has he been misleading?
I think there's a lot of murk around this issue. Suddenly, after Nick Smith's meeting with his officials, a 34-odd page document turned into 2 paragraphs. He's said that he had access to it, but he didn't read it. I think he's dancing on the head of the pin, and I think there's a lot more to come out about this story.
Do you think he's had his hand in this, because he's now blaming his officials?
I'd say he's had his arm in it.
Can I just clarify, if the Reserve Bank doesn't accept first home buyers as an exemption, you would legislate if the LVR was still in place when you were the government?
I haven't decided and haven't been briefed on what would be the exact best mechanism, but our policy objective is clear, which is on an interim basis, pending the full effect of our Kiwi building capital gains tax policies, we would be looking at an exemption for first home buyers. We are very critical that the government has hand-fisted this. They are not coordinated across departments. Ordinary Kiwis are paying the price. Meanwhile, the tax exemption for speculators carries on. More of the same from the key government.
And what's the perception there, given that there was a 32-page report and meeting with the Minister, the very next day it's scrapped and the first 2 paragraphs?
I think the implication is there for all to see. The Minister climbed into it. The Minister didn't want DoC submitting nitrate levels because he didn't want to lean against the big irrigated interests that are behind the dam. And I think the Minister's got a lot of explaining to do. This is not the first time the Minister's overextended himself and blamed officials, and I understand one official's already resigned.
Do you accept his explanation that officials, this was sloppiness on the part of senior managers for taking a draft submission to him and then changing it suddenly in 2 days?
Sloppiness on the part of officials for telling the truth.
You said that one information to staff members resigned.
I've been briefed on reports that one news agency is carrying that has already occurred.
Have you got any comment on Matthew Hooton's claim that you've lied over Fonterra and your involvement in it?
Yes, I made a one-word comment about that. I will be providing documentation to anyone who's interested to prove that I was involved in a case with the Boston Consulting Group advising to them using the Dairy Board on merger options.
What's the one word?
The one word I used, I tweeted the word bollocks because that is the technical term for Mr. Hooton's intervention.
Are you thinking of taking legal action?
I'm not. Mr. Hooton is a gadfly, doesn't deserve it.
Speaking of tweets, Claire Curran's tweet during the leadership campaign, did that have any bearing on?
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
What did you think of her, the way she handled herself during the leadership campaign?
That's irrelevant to the matter at hand yesterday. That was a portfolio-based reshuffle. She has got some new responsibilities and she's perfectly capable of working her way back up the ranks. Thank you very much, everybody.